We are less than a week away from the MLB winter meetings down in Dallas, and the Seattle Mariners have apparently reached out to the Philadelphia Phillies about third baseman Alec Bohm. They also reached out to the Cubs about second baseman Nico Hoerner. Joe and I will talk about if we think either of those trades are possible and what those teams asked for in return, before talking about a couple of free agents in Christian Walker and Pete Alonso that apparently the Mariners are in on. Joe and I are going to talk about if we think that is possible before we talk about Hai Sung Kim being posted earlier on Wednesday, and the Mariners continuing to be linked to him. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 145 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, like, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and this is the Scrubbies? The Scrubbies? I don't necessarily know how to say your name, but it is your episode, buddy, Scrubbies, and I am here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm feeling fantastic. It's we're getting there. We're slowly building to actual things happening with this baseball team. It feels like we kind of knew that the winter meetings coming up, that obviously Jerry, Justin, just anyone in the Mariners, they've got probably like 12 phones just clicking like accept call. Yes. No. Click. Yes. Hello. No. Click. Like they are just going to town, getting those conversations started. And some of them, frankly, just don't make any sense. And I don't know how or why certain teams get in their, like, set in their own ways about, like, how players are evaluated. And maybe that's us, too. Maybe we are too high on certain individuals because, like, they're our team, they're our bias. And we'll kind of get to that in a second of, like, what I'm actually referencing. But if the Mariners did go through with this Alec Bohm trade with the Phillies, based on like what has been kind of reported as like the Phillies asking price, I would be willing to bet that this could be one of the most cataclysmic trades in franchise history. And I know that's like maybe a bit of a reach, but like this feels like as big of a gamble of a trade that you can make given where the Mariners are at with their pitching development and their hitting development, just like where they have like internally. I don't know if this is a spot where they can honestly take that risk to make that large of a gamble, though. But there's a pretty good place you guys can do some gambling, and it's BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, and since the MLB regular season and postseason is over, free agency bets on who's going to play where will be available soon on BetOnline. Make sure you guys head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. Enough beating around the bush. It was Logan Gilbert and George Kirby that started, I guess, the preliminary conversations with the Phillies and Alec Bohm.
I'd like to preface it with Logan Gilbert or George Kirby, not and.
Sorry, I guess, yeah, maybe, yeah, wording is important there. I didn't mean that. I meant, like, those are the two names that were proposed, or is a good, yeah, my apologies. Yeah, that's just ridiculous, though, like, given, like, what we know about how valuable pitchers are, and who Alec Bohm has been largely in his career. This is his best season. Do we know if that's going to be repeatable? Probably not. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Whereas, like, you can look to Gilbert and Kirby, or Kirby, and really have a larger, I think, sample size and testimonial of, like, what they're going to give you in 2025 versus what you're going to get out of Alec Bohm. And I think it was, I don't remember which Collins brother it was. I think it was Archduke Collins. Maybe it was Sean. I don't remember. But he posted something about like a buying market strategy kind of a thing of like they're setting their price high to then bring the Mariners down kind of a situation. Like they're setting it up so high because they know it's unrealistic, but they're not going to they know the Mariners probably were going to lowball Alec Bohm, so they wanted to highball the Mariners on the opposite end kind of a thing. And I could see that being like a tactic for them, but I just don't know how much that stalls those conversations because like Bohm has been a guy that a lot of people have talked about, and he does make sense with what the Mariners need positionally. It's just that asking price of Logan Gilbert or George Kirby is just, it's asinine to think that the Phillies would even entertain that as like a legitimate possibility for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the Phillies back, and I'm gonna offer them Dylan Moore for Bryce Harper and just see what happens.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. Why not? I think that while a good marketing strategy, sure, or a good trade strategy in regards to starting high, it makes sense. But I would think like to ask for literally two of the best pitchers in baseball, like one of the two best pitchers for a guy who had a 96 WRC plus after the first month of the season, a guy who has been, I think he had like a .8 F WAR like his first few seasons in the big leagues. Alec Bohm's not even that good.
Mm-mm.
I might even struggle to trade them just Emerson Hancock for Alec Bohm. Like it probably
we're getting a little greedy.
Yeah, so I think that if the Phillies had said like, hey, what about Brian Wu for Alec Bohm? Like just to start, that wouldn't be as asinine of an ask. But to ask for like, I mean, I would still say no.
Yeah.
But like to ask for Logan Gilbert or George Kirby, it's just disrespectful, bro. Like to I mean, obviously they had to know that Jared Dipoto was going to hang up the phone immediately. Like when they asked that, like if I was Jared, I would have started laughing, like
just maniacally.
Hello, yes, this is Dave Dombrowski. How would you feel if we traded you Alec Bohm? Well, this is Mr. Gerald Dipoto. That would be sick. What do you want? We would like one Logan Gilbert. A click. Yep.
You didn't even
That's
laugh. Thank you. That sounded more like Dombrowski's laugh.
That was a. This metaphor's getting a little weird.
What a bit.
It's getting weird. Like it's just so stupid. So at that point, it's like, okay, well, cool. We won't focus on Bohm the rest of the offseason. I wouldn't call the Phillies back. Nothing. I'd be like, no, he's out. And then if the Phillies want to come back and give you a realistic offer, great. But yeah, I read that and I was just like blown away.
I mean,
because we just watched Frankie Montas get what does he get $17 million and Matthew Boyd get 15. Like,
and they want to like buy Logan Gilbert at
for 8.
his obvious like high. Like this has been his best season. He was 6th in Cy Young, and then they're gonna be like, "Hey, here's Alec Bohm. You're welcome." Like, no, it's just not how it works. And you're talking about like how like the day, like that's how my day started with baseball news. Like I knew that like Hae-Sung Kim got posted this morning, or that like the day that we're recording this. I was like, oh yeah. And then I was like, nothing's really happening. And then it's like, boom, Alec Bohm for Logan Gilbert has been discussed with like the Phillies. That's what they asked. Like, what do we like? Why are we starting the day off on such a wrong foot? Let's go back to bed. Let's reset.
I think the big question that I've seen posed on Twitter was the Brady Singer for Jonathan India trade. I think it was a Locked On Boys that posted it. And it's like, yeah, that probably has some merit here. But Logan Gilbert is 10 times the pitcher that Brady Singer is. Like, Brady Singer's not that good. I think he has the potential to be good. And Jonathan India's not that good. He has the potential to be good. But, like, to try to compare it, you're comparing apples to oranges here, in my opinion. The 1-for-1 swap of Singer for India, personally, I think the Royals got a little cheesed on that deal. Honestly. Because I think that India's really not that good, and I think Singer has a chance to be pretty good. But they needed a guy at second base. They filled out with a guy who has also been sounded like he has been a good clubhouse guy. And then to add that to a younger Royals club, sure, maybe that works out. But I don't know. I don't know where the Phillies are coming from here. And as we move on in the National League, Nico Hoerner is a guy that we've talked about quite a bit. It has a couple years of club control worth about $11 million a year, I think it is. For Hoerner, Gold Glove defender, doesn't strike out a whole lot. And in return, according to this article from Adam Jude, when the Mariners and Cubs were discussing this, the Cubs were asking for major league talent in talks for Nico Hoerner. I think the problem with that, for the Mariners specifically, they don't really have major league talent to give. I mean, sure, if the Cubs value like Tyler Locklear, Ryan Bliss, Dom Canzone, guys like that, then sure. But if I'm the Cubs, I would assume that I'd be asking for somebody a little bit higher up and probably starting with one of the starting pitchers again. I want to read you this because this is from a Cubs, he writes for the Ivy League Cubs or something like that.
Jacob Zanola?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, so sounds like you're on top of it too. Here we go. A framework of Nico Hoerner for Brian Wu was thrown around at the GM meetings in early November. Although clearly, I'd assume the Cubs would need to add more. If Hoerner is moved, the Mariners and Yankees are two spots I'd keep my eye on.
And that
So,
is in relation to what you said they'd have to add on to Hoerner.
correct. So they need to add Hoerner. It need to be Hoerner plus for Bryan Woo.
Oh, it was for Bryan Woo. Okay.
Yeah. And so I don't disagree with that. I think that you would need to add like another piece or two for that deal to work for Bryan Woo just because of how valuable pitching is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the Cubs came to you tomorrow, Joe, and said, we'll trade you Nico Hoerner, Michael Busch, and I don't know, someone in like their top 15 for Bryan Woo. What do you think?
Yes, immediately. I think I don't know if the Cubs would want to do Hoerner and Busch, given
Probably not.
Busch's
Yeah.
control. I think that is a player that they'd probably want to hold on to, given how they also want to move out from underneath Bellinger. They'd probably want someone to be able to play first that they trust. I know that they're just trying to not clear space, like that Matt Shaw deserves that like starting spot in their infield somewhere. But yeah, I would do that. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow that we saw what Bryan Woo matured into in 2024, and like he really like stepped up and was the Mariners' best pitcher for the large part of the second half when he was healthy. And do we know if that's what we're gonna get from here on out? I mean, I don't see a reason why not, but I can also see like how the injury bug could come back and plague him a little bit, where he may never see 32 starts in a season. Just like, frankly, like that's something that should be a legitimate concern for teams trying to, I guess, like talent evaluate him, just like where he's at as like a big leaguer. Like if you're going to get 25 starts out of him every single year and like 150 innings, like that's great. But like, is he going to be there for deep playoff runs? Like that's something that's probably a legitimate concern. I don't think the Cubs would go more like, I don't think Busch would be involved. I'd assume it'd be, and I know that like the Mariners probably they would want some like major league level stuff as well, like on the like flip side of that conversation. So I don't know how it kind of builds out further, like beyond just given like I would have taken Tauchman in a trade like that. If the Cubs had tendered Tauchman, I think Hoerner, Tauchman, and like another smallish piece, yeah, that's another trade that I would do for Bryan Woo. Because I think also with the money that, I mean, yeah, you take on a decent amount of money there, like you do. Like Hoerner's getting paid 11, Tauchman's getting paid 3, so you're taking on 14 for Bryan Woo's obviously league minimum. So like that's pretty much your entire off-season budget. So you have to then go make another trade somewhere to get a pitcher because you can't sign anybody unless you trade just salary dump and then you use that money that you salary dump to like make a signing. But like that just gets a lot more convoluted unless you somehow stumble into the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes where you don't have to pay someone a lot of money. That can be a legitimate top end of the rotation guy. There's a lot of moving parts, and I think again, Hoerner's a guy that I really, really would like to see in a Mariners uniform, just given his contact skill set and the way he plays defense, the way he runs the bases. It feels like a guy at second base that you really could use, and I don't think he's like it's not impossible to move him around the infield either. I think that's something that is within the realm of possibility. If Cole Young is then ready, great, then you can move Nico Hoerner around, or you can move Cole Young. Like there's not like these like limited opportunities where like Polanco felt like you really could only play him at second, maybe at third if you wanted to, but it's like that feels way riskier than the more athletic glove first kind of infielders like that. I think out of the starting pitchers available to trade, I guess from the Mariners, like obviously the answer is Castillo, but like the Cubs are probably going to want one of those guys that's more cost controlled just because like that makes sense for them. Like a rotation of Imanaga, Steele, Woo, Tyone, Boyd. You've got Assad in there still as well, possibly, like depending on like what they want to value there. Like that'd be pretty good for them. It's just, are they going to give enough to the Mariners for them to fork over one of those pitchers? And it starts with Hoerner, and I agree that it has to expand. I just don't know how much more the Mariners can like get away with without the Cubs then being like, okay, we need to reevaluate with where we want to take our direction as well.
Yeah, I think that in the end, what it would probably take to get this deal done is somewhere in between the two deals that you and I said. I was probably a little high. I feel like yours might have been a little light. Obviously, Tauchman's not with the team anymore, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a very interesting deal, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. The problem for the Mariners is that they are so heavy in terms of organizational like talent that isn't necessarily at the big league level yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably where they would rather trade from. They would probably rather. They obviously want to keep the 5 starters. They want to keep most of the team intact as it is. So the Mariners would like to trade from their lower level minors, but teams like the Cubs aren't looking for that right now. The Cubs have so many guys just in their top 10 right now. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their top 5 is all expected to debut next year in 2025. Like, that's crazy. And so the Cubs are probably in a pretty good spot. But I do think that them moving on from Hoerner is something they will do this offseason. I just don't think it'll be with the Mariners because I just don't think the teams match up that well. Teams that match up really well with some first baseman on the free agent market, Joe. The Seattle Mariners need a first baseman. Now, I think it's probably a foregone conclusion for all of us that the Mariners' first baseman next year will be one of Carlos Santana or Justin Turner.
Along with
I think
Luke Raley.
Along with Luke Raley, right. However, over on The Athletic, on Black Friday, is his name Andy McCall who or something? I don't know. He said that the Mariners should sign Pete Alonso. And he thinks that there could be some traction there. He said, perhaps more than any other player, Alonso is waiting to see where Juan Soto lands. The Mets harbor interest of bringing back Alonso, a homegrown star. The team has a backup plan, though, in the form of infielder Mark Vientos, moving to first base. And the Mariners are so desperate for offense, especially from the infield corners, that the front office could ignore Alonso's lack of on-base skills and pay a premium for his power. Do you have his numbers pulled up of what he's projected to make, Joe?
From the MLB trade rumors, like free agent prediction list, where they projected. I almost combined those two words. Blake Snell to get 5 years, 160. He got 5 years, 182. They have Mr. Polar Bear himself, Pete Alonso, at 5 years, $125 million. I say Blake Snell's contract because that went over the projection or the prediction. If Alonso's worth more than $25 million to a club, the Mariners are out. If Alonso's worth more than $20 million to a club, the Mariners are out. If you can somehow get Pete Alonso to sign to your team for $15 million, for whatever reason, you got him to buy low on himself. The Mariners don't have enough money to spend this offseason to sign Pete Alonso, given what we know about where they expect payroll to be at. They do have enough money in terms of what they've gotten in revenue and how much their spending has kind of resulted, like the disparity between what they've brought in as an organization and what they've spent on the on-field product. Yeah, there's a big discrepancy there. Could they spend more? Very much so. And that could then align with this idea that they could pay a premium, things that Mariners fans would just clamor for, could go crazy for, if a front office was like, not the front office, if the ownership group decided to be like, hey, yeah, we could do that. That'd be fun. Wouldn't that be fun, guys, to bring in a guy that could hit 40 home runs a year? That'd be really fun, actually. I think that'd be fun. Let's do that. Let's have some fun. No, that's not it. That's not what the literal communicated plan has been given to us. And sure, if they go away from that, that's fine. If it's a positive situation, of course. The likelihood of that happening, not necessarily the case, because last year they pulled the rug and they veered off the course, and it ended up being a little bit more on the negative side. The linking of the Mariners to first basemen that are worth more than $15 million a year annual average as a projection feels disingenuous to, as you called them, I think in the intro, experts. They're clearly not experts on with what's going on within the Mariners organization from a spending standpoint.
And speaking of a guy who's really not an expert, the yapper himself, JP Morosi, went on to MLB Network and talked a little bit about Christian Walker and the Mariners. And his big quote here was, Walker and the Mariners, that is one of the pairings that I am watching very carefully here, potentially in the days ahead, going up to the winter meetings. Why? Why are you wasting your time? There's so many reasons as to why that's not going to happen. Again, you just talk. He's cheaper than Alonso,
Yep.
like you said. What was he projected? He said like
3
3
years, 60
years.
million, so 20 million per. I've seen a lot of people also say like 3 years, 54, so 18 million. Yeah, again, this was a guy that I think if the Mariners were to go to say 160, 165 in their payroll going into 2025, Walker makes a lot of sense because he plays great defense, which Rayleigh does not at first base. Sure, a lot can change over an offseason. Hopefully, working with Perry, he'll be able to kind of lock it down a bit more there, but he was not great defensively at first base. And sure, he was thrown into a situation where he probably wasn't expected to be there a ton and did fine. But regardless, like Walker, Gold Glove defense at first base, stable offensive presence, maybe not as like big boom like as Pete Alonso. Yeah, no, we're not doing it. You hate them. Why are you doing that?
I can't stand the Costco
I literally,
guys.
I just used the term boom, and you like winter soldiered. Like that was crazy. Walker, I get it. Like that fascination with getting a bona fide first baseman, I get it. And sure, the pairing makes sense from a team depth organizational need, but it all circles back to money. It's all about the money, money, money. What like cash rules everything around me. Like I don't understand how these people are in these industries talking to the actual figureheads for these teams that can give those players dollar amounts, and they're like, yeah, no, they can do that for sure. When we know that's just not true. It doesn't make sense. Like, where's the disconnect?
I think that Walker is probably the perfect fit for the Mariners at first base. He plays good defense, not going to be terribly expensive, and you probably only need to sign him to a 3-ish year deal, which for where the Mariners are at in their window of contention is perfect. Whereas Alonso, like you said, is going to command a little bit longer. That was it, 5 years for him, they projected. And so I think that, yeah, in a vacuum, like the thing is, there's a large difference between what we're hearing here, which is things what the Mariners should do. They should go sign Pete Alonso. They should sign Christian Walker. They should be looking at guys like Hoerner or Bohm, which those are certainly still possibilities. But mainly when we talk about free agents, A, the Mariners aren't going to spend that kind of money. B, free hitters don't want to come here. Why would they? It's work. There are so many reasons as to why they wouldn't. We've seen it time and time again. Why would they waste their time? The only way the Mariners are going to get bona fide hitters, in my opinion, is through trade. Like the bigger name guys. There are some lower name guys, which we'll get to here in a second, that might actually want to come to Seattle because it doesn't all rely on power. I think that sometimes these experts need something to talk about.
Yeah.
And I get it. We're that way sometimes. We're scrounging.
Oh, yeah.
But I understand that they're good fits. Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, those are great fits. But any understanding of the Seattle Mariners above like a 4th grade level should know that they're not going to be interested in these guys because they're too expensive. I think that that's been a hard truth for me this offseason specifically, because I talked about it before. I've been so excited to this point in the offseason, can't wait to see what the Mariners are going to do with the winter meetings. And now I'm like, I've been told that the Mitches are coming back. Dylan Moore and Ryan Bliss are going to be the second baseman, and that the Phillies want Logan Gilbert for Alec Bohm, and we only got $16 million to spend. What reason do we have to get excited about this team right now? And this is something that would make, like, if the Mariners signed one of Alonso or Walker, I'd be over the moon. Yeah. I'd be thrilled. I think everybody would be. And I think Mariners fans are kind of clamoring for it. But with everything that has happened over the past few months since the season, I just don't see a possibility where we can expect anything more than, a few guys here and there that are some contact guys that make a little bit of sense. Transitions or go crazy. And that could be Hae-Sung Kim, second baseman, coming over from Korea Joe, who was just posted today. Tell me about it.
Well, Mark Feinstein went on MLB Network, similar to how John Paul Morosi went on MLB Network, and just kind of reiterated that the Mariners are interested in Hae-Sung Kim. And it's another one of those things where water bottle moment that you're thinking about what you've just heard about Ryan Bliss and Dylan Moore, and like that's who they're looking at going forward, and they'd rather focus on water bottle moment at third base going into next season of people that they want to bring in. And then you're getting news that like they're like, yeah, we'll go sign this lottery ticket from Korea that may be good, may not be good. And it's just like, sure, the fit makes sense. It can make a lot of sense. You're talking about contact first guys that don't need to hit a lot of homers to be successful in a professional sense when it comes to baseball. I think Hae-Sung Kim makes a lot of sense in that regard. Could you move him around the infield? Could you move Dylan Moore and Ryan Bliss around the infield? Give Kim second base? Yeah, I think so. I think Bliss and Moore could be fine at third. I say begrudgingly. Like, I just don't know. And I don't think we'll know until, one, either they sign him or another team signs him, or like they make a move as a precursor before Kim is signed. Like, if they go get Bohm, they're out on Kim. If they go get Hoerner, they're out on Kim. Like, I don't think those moves can operate in the same offseason given what we have seen, just like as like rumor mills have kind of like started to churn things out of like what the Mariners are doing and how they're being active in certain markets. Like, yes, they want to move the ball forward, but where are they going to get that momentum from? I don't think you can take it from too many places. They're going to focus in on one and then try and like I don't know, like redistribute whatever they've got working in house to make it make sense with what they actually do are actually able to go out and achieve. Because like going and get a third baseman makes sense with what we've seen and heard about the Dylan Moore, Ryan Bliss second base option with Cole Young just probably having an opportunity in the summer if both those guys aren't really performing as much as the Mariners want them to. Alternatively, Hae-Sung Kim reiterated with the Mariners, like, how does that, like, how do they go together? And it's like, okay, are you then going to go do 3 people at second base? Are you going to then just do Kim and Bliss and then have Dylan Moore be a bit more of a roamer? Like, that's a possibility. But again, like, you're just banking on such a big lottery ticket panning out in this first year coming over from Korea because we know the signs of struggle are probably going to happen. Like, it's a more likely outcome that he comes over here, struggles in his first season, and then figures it out a year or two down the line versus he comes over and knocks it out of the park right away, which is something the Mariners can't necessarily afford to wait around this offseason if they can't make moves like getting Bohm or Hoerner as well as Kim or Walker and Alonso.
Yeah, there's certainly there's a lot of moving parts right now with the Seattle Mariners in terms of these rumors that we've heard. But the one that has been reiterated, like you said, a million times at this point throughout the offseason has been Kim to the Mariners. And it's something that clearly the Mariners are interested in. And I get it. I think that they need a high contact guy who maybe isn't going to strike out a whole bunch. His profile is similar to that of Nico Hoerner. It just, who knows how well that translates into Major League Baseball compared to being over in Korea. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think that he's a good addition. I think that it's a fine addition. I also, in the same vein, think that it's a bit of he's another Dylan Moore, in my opinion. Like, he's Dylan Moore, Ryan Bliss. Like, they got rid of Josh Rojas, so that's one, like, utility guy that can play second or third base that I think is gone now. Mm-hmm. Kim is just, it feels like another guy, almost like the pile that they're adding at second base. Like, I don't know. I think it's a fine addition, but it can't be your best addition of the offseason. We've said that all year long now. Yeah. Kim has 30 days from today, so that being the 4th of December, to sign with a major league team. Otherwise, I believe he then goes back to Korea. I think is how that works.
Yeah.
And
he'll be signed.
So he'll definitely be signed. So the Mariners have 30 days to figure this out. Do they want to go that route? Does Kim want to go that route? We don't know. We don't know if he wants to come here or not. But all signs have pointed to the fact that the Mariners are going to make a strong run at him. And the Mariners, we all know, in terms of international slot money, have the money to do. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, for the posting fee and whatnot. But yeah. they have the what's what I'm looking for?
Capital funds, the
capital,
ability.
Sure, something like that to go out there and get Hae-Sung Kim. It's just if that's the route they're going to go, they need to really hit it out of the park at other positions, because if they don't, then it's going to be kind of a problem if Kim is your best bat and then you run with Moore or someone at third base, because this team desperately needs someone in the middle of that lineup to pair with Cal Raleigh and Julio and Randy. And frankly, they need to make sure they get guys that are going to be key contributors this offseason. They can't go out there and whiff again like they did with Jorge Polanco. They can't go out there and whiff again like they did with Colton Wong, Mitch Garver, etc. They just can't. And because of that, this offseason and these next few weeks, the winter meetings are going to be pivotal for this team.
My big worry is that, like, what will happen is they will make some sort of move and they'll just like what they've tried to sell us on with the Mitch is coming back. Like, that those at bats that you're going to give to Mitch Haniger next year, Should he stay with the team the entire season? I would be shocked if he does. But if he does, those at-bats could have gone to someone that just would be able to be productive in that position. Same thing with Mitch Garver. Yeah, odd year Mitch Garver go crazy. I'll drink the Kool-Aid. I'll do it. I've been doing it. But again, if it's by June and he's got nothing to show for it again, what are they going to do? They're going to eat $6 more million for the rest of the year? I don't think they'd want to do that. But what choice do they have? They're not going to be able to trade him. If he's terrible, if both of them are terrible, you're not trading either of them. It's like preying on their bounce back. Not only does it like impede you from making better moves to make this team better to go into the season, you're just hurting yourself long term for this contention window. How you've talked about, like, where maybe signing Walker makes more sense than signing Alonso in this situation. Like, you're just going to waste another year of a generational pitching staff that's just going to keep getting more and more expensive. Your core of players that are your biggest contributors are only going to get more and more expensive. If you don't win now, and the best way to improve profit margins, shockingly enough, is freaking winning. Weird how that works. That when your team makes the playoffs and you can sell out more games and you can win those games, you make money. It's weird how that can work. I know, shocked face. I know, YouTube thumbnail face. It's just so jarring and disappointing that, like, what we're doing on December 4th, like, with actual news, is being, like, dismissive towards it because the way that the conversations around the offseason has happened the last 3 years. It's not just like this specific one, but like there have been other ones where you think about like what could have been done in that big shortstop class. Not to say that any of those contracts are really aging super, super well, but like there was still always that possibility. And the fact that it never felt like anything materialized out of it. And it's even like the same thing with like the Mariners not being interested in Juan Soto. It's like not even checking in on a guy that could legitimately change the direction of your franchise for the next 10 years is insane. That like it's not something that they're willing to do. And I don't know if Soto's a guy that I would have signed for 12 years, $700 million, because like that's an insane contract. But like it'd be better than running out the Mitches, obviously. Because like look at the production. You're just the Mariners are like consistently handcuffing themselves, tying themselves to a rock, and jumping in a river. Like they're drowning themselves every single season by not making this team better while the core is still affordable.
Yeah, I think that the scariest thing for me right now is what happens if there's an injury to like a key player. You don't really have anybody to go fill into that spot right now. Obviously, there's still plenty of offseason left and cake half bake or whatever it was Joe Doyle said way back when, but I don't know, man. It's a pretty scary time to be a Mariners fan. So we're gonna give you something positive really quick. We have been doing a Why I Fan about the Seattle Mariners recently, where you guys send us why you guys are Mariners fans, whether that be in a 2 to 3 minute video, which we prefer. Your face will be right there on the screen, or where we can just read out your email. And this one is from Scott Russmeyer. Make sure to send that to marinermojobiz@gmail.com, by the way, if you do want to be featured in one of these podcasts. Scott Russmeyer says, well, there are a multitude of reasons why I'm a Mariners fan, none of them being that I'm a glutton for punishment. My dad is a diehard Mariners fan, and I became a fan and started following the team and watching games in none other than the 2001 season. So I was sort of doomed after that. Good point, Scott. But I keep coming back because they are my home team. And it's more fun to hate the Yankees and Dodgers than to root for them. My 6-year-old is right behind me and cheering them on, and here's to a better 2025. Well, Scott, cheers to you, buddy. This is your episode. Thank you so much for sending that in. And thank you to you guys for watching episode 145 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by Bet Online, and go Mariners.